members of the Board of Trustees Committee on Fiscal Affairs, please respond present when you hear your name. Chairperson Ferrer.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Mujica. Trustee Sunshine.
Present.
Trustee Berger.
Present.
Trustee Cortez Vasquez. Trustee Thompson.
Present.
Trustee Schwartz.
Present.
Professor Verzani.
Present.
Razieh Arabi. Kaysen Mamdin.
Present.
Great. And Trustee Martin Burke.
Present.
Great. You have a quorum, Freddie.
Thank you very kindly. We have a quorum. This public meeting of the Committee on Fiscal Affairs is called to order. Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202, declaring a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. On March 13, 2020, Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202.1, which included the suspension of law following the attendance of meetings, allowing the attendance of meetings telephonically or other similar service. Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, to the extent necessary to permit any public body to meet and take such actions authorized by law without permitting in-public, in-person access to meetings and authorizing such meetings to be held remotely by conference call or similar service, provided that the public has an ability to view and listen. Meetings are recorded and later transcribed. So in accordance with the executive order, this board meeting is held via teleconference and live stream found at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. Copy of the calendar is also available online at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. Additional items can be added during the meeting. And as a reminder, please mute your audio so that we can ensure that everyone can hear. Now I'd like to ask the Secretary to take a roll call for members of the Chancellery and other invited guests.
Great. Thanks, Freddie. Members of the Chancellery and other invited guests, please respond present when you hear your name. Chancellor Matos Rodriguez.
Here.
General Counsel and Senior Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs, Derek Davis.
Present.
Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Operating Officer, Hector Batista.
Present.
Senior Vice Chancellor, Matt Sapienza.
Present.
Interim President for BMCC, Karen Wilkes.
Present.
Interim President of LaGuardia Community College, Paul Arcario.
Present.
Christina Chiappa.
Present.
Catherine Abata.
Present.
Karen Christian.
Present.
And Jane Davis.
Present.
Great. That's it, Freddie.
Thank you, Gail. Now let's turn to the items requiring a vote today. Given that all board members are participating remotely, I'll announce the resolutions and ask for members to respond only if you would like to abstain or oppose an item. Otherwise, your vote will be recorded as a yes vote. If you are voting no or abstaining, please state your name and vote. Additionally, if you wish to second an item or have any questions, please state your name for the record, and let's try to avoid speaking over one another. Now take up the following item for approval. Action item 1A is the approval of the minutes of our April 27, 2020 meeting, and I'll move approval of item 1A. Do I have a second?
Second, Berger.
Are there any discussions, any changes, any omissions, any comments on these minutes? Hearing none, we'll now vote. Please only respond if you'd like to abstain or oppose. The minutes are unanimously approved. Thank you. I'd now like to address Section 2, the policy calendar. Item 1A is a resolution requesting the authorization of a contract with Schindler Elevator Corporation for elevator and escalator maintenance services at Borough Manhattan Community College. The college requires full elevator and escalator maintenance services for 14 elevators and 6 escalators at Fitterman Hall. These services include all inspections, adjustments, tests, parts replacement, and repairs necessary to keep the elevators and escalators in continuous use at their initial performance ability, same speed, safety, and efficiency, and as originally specified by the equipment manufacturer or most recent upgrade specifications. The contract will be for a maximum of 5-year period and will and I'll call on Senior Vice Chancellor Matt Sapienza and President Wilkes to provide further background on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, everyone. So Borough Manhattan Community College is seeking a contract for elevator and escalator maintenance at Fitterman Hall. I think most of you are aware Fitterman Hall is their newest building. That the original Fitterman Hall was damaged in 9/11. And the new building, I'm sure all of you have been there, know it's escalator maintenance services here for the entire building. They did do a public procurement. They invited the vendor community to a site visit to look at the elevators and escalators that would have to be maintained. Subsequent to that, they did do a public bid, and they got one respondent, which is the vendor that we're bringing forth tonight, which is Schindler Elevator Corporation. The pricing is very similar to what the college had been historically paying. So in terms of increased costs, it's almost the same as what they had been paying. And we also had our Office of Facilities Planning and Construction Management review the proposed contract, and they also were confident that the college is getting good value with this maintenance contract. So with that, and if the chair's okay with it, if President Wilkes would like to add anything, I'll turn it over to her.
President Wilkes?
Yes, thank you. Add and I guess echo what Matt said in terms of we really believe this is a good value. Is set up is that there's maintenance costs and then repairs costs, which may or may not eventuate. So it's the two pieces that are constituting the contract.
Are you concluded?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, I have about this contract in a series of emails with Matt Sapienza and Hector Batista. I am troubled by two things. One, the fact that only one is a successful bid. That seems to be antithetical to the idea of competitive bidding, and that we seem to be stuck in a rut. And this is not only CUNY, or not only BMCC, but certainly other elements of CUNY and other agencies, with people who manufacture parts and install so-called proprietary software, which people who are paying attention to this industry know is not really a breathtaking breakthrough in technology, but a marketing technique. However, we've gone back and forth on this in emails. I think we have is how we deal with bids where we end up with one successful bidder in an industry that's known to talk with one another, and two, how we deal with designs and build-outs that include proprietary software that essentially limits our ability to be competitive going forward.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll start, and I will say, for the record, I do appreciate Chair Ferrer bringing this issue up, both in preparation for this meeting and publicly at this meeting. It is a challenge that we've had at CUNY, and I know other agencies have had, in that not just elevator and escalators, but a lot of facilities maintenance contracts like fire alarms. Very often, the manufacturer of the item is the one who will be the only bidder on the servicing of such equipment. So we have experienced that over the years. We did go back and we did go back and check previous procurements, elevator and escalator maintenance, and I want to thank our Director for Tim and Karen Christian, who was on the call as well, for going back and looking at that. And it certainly wasn't every time that we've had one bidder. Some colleges did go out to bid and had multiple bidders, even though it was different from who the manufacturer was. So I wouldn't say it's every single time that we've had it. It's been a bit of a mixed bag. In this case, BNCC, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, they did go out and did reach out to 5 vendors. Only one of those vendors, which is the manufacturer, Schindler in this case, ended up bidding. But based on the good feedback we got from Chair Ferrer, we're going to require 2 things going forward of all colleges that go out to bid on facilities equipment, not just elevators and escalators, but like I said, fire alarms and other types of equipment, the maintenance on that equipment. And we did discuss this with our facilities colleagues as well. So the first thing we're going to do is any of the vendors who are on state contract for that service, we are going to require that the colleges proactively reach out to those vendors and let them know that they are going to the street with bid, send them a copy of the RFP, and make sure that all vendors that are on state contract are aware that we are looking for service on our facilities maintenance equipment. And then the second thing that we're going to ask all colleges to do, or I shouldn't say ask, we are going to require all colleges to do for facilities maintenance equipment, is once the bids come in, those vendors that are on state contract that have not bid, is to, again, follow up with each of those vendors and find out why they chose not to bid. And, it's a good example happens in this procurement. One of the requirements that the NCC had for their contract that we agree with is they required overnight service for their elevators and escalators if they go down and they break or are not operating, which for campus like BNCC, 26,000 students and running classes from 7 a.m. till 10 at night, we think is appropriate, because not to disrupt the students and faculty from getting where they need to get during the instructional day. So that knocked some vendors out, and that is I think reasonable if that's something that we think is important to require. And a vendor can't provide that service, that's reasonable. But to the chair's point, I think it'll be really instructive for us to, as we have future procurements, find out why these other vendors, I should say, are not bidding. And for each of these procurements that we bring to the committee, we can come back and report which vendors we reached out to, which bid, and for those that didn't bid, the reason that they chose not to bid.
And can I add one more thing? This is Hector Batista. I think the other thing we probably will do is also ask for some sort of an exit interview to just make sure that we sort of pick up on whatever nuances were in the contract that vendors feel that either were not explained appropriately or, it created a hardship for them to be able to bid on those contracts. I mean, I think that in this particular industry, as the chairman has pointed out, there are those challenges around, technology that whether it's state-of-the-art technology or not, that other vendors feel that they don't want to come in and have to deal with other people's problems. So I think we're going to add that to it to try to make sure that we get a little bit more intel as we are sort of understanding why we didn't have as many vendors, bid on the particular contract. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
And so I'm sorry. This is Karen Wilkes. I would just add I appreciate talking about the structural challenge in this process. But for us, we did these new elements of the process obviously weren't in place, and we didn't have any other vendors bid. And so I do appreciate that we're looking for other ways to go about the process in the future, but really hope that we can approve this contract today.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this? Okay. If there is none, I'm going to ask if there is someone who will move this item, because I'm going to abstain on it. Anyone moving this?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second, Berger.
and I should disclose to the committee, the reason I'm abstaining is because although I understand all the arguments that are being made, I would have liked to see a firm policy on this. I still am troubled by accepting a bid and declaring it successful where only one bidder has bid. Very frankly, putting this over a month or so would not have denied anybody any services of the elevators and escalators by the time of school opening. But I'll just abstain. Anyone else? Everyone else is approved. I'd like to be recorded as abstaining.
Recorded, Freddie.
Okay. B1 is a resolution requesting the authorization of a contract with Gilbert International for New York State certified minority and women-owned business for building maintenance services at LaGuardia Community College. The college is required to ensure the campus buildings are maintained and up to operational standards, and uses qualified contractors to manage building maintenance services. The contractor will provide general and building systems maintenance, both preventive and corrective, and operating engineering services and emergency response services. The contract will be for a maximum of 5 years and won't exceed 17. I'll call on Senior Vice Chancellor Matt Sapienza and President Arcario to provide further background on this item. Matt?
I had it on mute. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. LaGuardia Community College is one of 2 campuses within the CUNY system that contracts out its maintenance and operations for the campuses, their full maintenance and operations suite of services. So LaGuardia's been doing this for many years, and has always felt that they have gotten tremendous service and savings as a result of doing that. The contract that LaGuardia had in place, we had to terminate because the vendor that was providing services was not paying New York City controller prevailing wages And so there was a very abrupt loss of services, and so LaGuardia had to go back out to the market and put out a bid for a new vendor, and that's the vendor that we're bringing forth here tonight, Gilbert International. And one of the things that we are really pleased about this procurement in particular is that Gilbert is an MWBE approved vendor. And so we are really pleased that LaGuardia, as part of this process, is choosing a MWBE vendor. This is obviously a very large contract, and having a vendor maintain 1.8 million square feet at LaGuardia Community College. The contract is for $17.5 million, or up to $17.5 million over 5 years. So this is really going to enhance our MWB program, our total MWB spend, and so we're pleased about that component of it. $17.5 million over 5 years averages to about $3.5 million. The college is estimating that for next year, for fiscal 21, that they're going to spend about $3.17 million and not $3.5. Obviously, there are escalators in the contract as it goes up, but $17.5 million is up to. But next year, they feel it's going to be about $3.17. They spent about $2.97 in the current year, so it's about $200,000 increase. So it is a slight increase. But again, the current vendor, we had to terminate services with them, and need to get a vendor in there as quickly as possible. And LaGuardia did do a public procurement in which they chose Gilbert International. So with that, I'll turn it over with the chairman's approval to President Arcario to add more to my description.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me and for the time. I mentioned LaGuardia has been contracting for building system services actually since our inception. And I do want to note that in a recent report sanctioned by CUNY's Facilities Planning and Capital Budget Group, we were cited as one of the best maintained and lowest power consuming campuses in CUNY. And I believe that is due to the professionalism and productivity of our staff of 25 engineering and general building maintenance workers that we have on campus. I would add that it was a bit of a saga with Able, but we did go through the process. We are happy with. We did have 3 bids. We are very happy with Gilbert's and the fact that they are a certified women-owned contractor, and we're happy to be able to award that to them. Thank you.
3 bids, that's more like it.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who wants to be heard on this?
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, a question.
Sure.
Is the new contractor maintaining the previous staff from the prior contractor, or are they bringing in new people?
It's maintaining the staff.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm very happy to say that because they're excellent and they have an average of being with us for 17 years. So I think it's important that we're keeping them.
Is there anyone else? Well, I'll move approval of policy item B1. Is there a second?
Berger, second.
Thank you, Trustee Berger. Is there any further discussion? We'll now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Those abstaining? Those opposed? Item B1 is approved. Item C1, creation of a contract with Culinart Group to provide food service operations to the university's campuses. At present, CUNY's food service operations are handled by, excuse me, I lost my place in my Word document. Please bear with me. They're handled at the college through multiple contracts, and in an effort to obtain better services for the campuses, the university decided to seek university-wide contract that takes advantage of efficiencies of scale, encourages consistency of food service quality throughout the university, and improves vendor oversight, as well as supporting a safe and fair workplace for food service workers and providing assistance to the food insecure on CUNY campuses. Under the proposed contract, Culinart will service every CUNY campus with the exception of College of Staten Island, as long as it self-operates its food service, including those who do not currently have food service. Each college will work with Culinart to determine the type of service to be provided at its campus, which can provide traditional cafeteria-style dining, faculty dining rooms, coffee and snack bars, pop-up cafes, and grab-and-go stations, among others. The contract term, including all renewals, will be no longer than 15 years and be at no cost to the university. It will also include an $18 million investment by Culinart in facility improvements, technology, and food insecurity programs, as well as a profit split pursuant to which Culinart will split with CUNY any profit above 3% earned by fully operational food service locations at the university, with 80% going to CUNY and 20% to Culinart. I'll now call on Executive Vice Chancellor and COO Sapienza to provide further background.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we are very, very pleased to bring this to the committee for consideration tonight. And I want to just give a little background, a little history as to how we got here. As the chairman said, historically at CUNY, the food service operations have been local decisions made by the campuses through their auxiliary enterprises. And so all 18 of our campuses that contracted out for their services, which are all of the large campuses with the exception of College of Staten Island, which ran their own, all of the other 18 went out and had their own service, which meant that the service amongst our campuses was very different. Some of it not as good as others. The pricing, again, was very disparate amongst the colleges. And to add to this, in 2018, and so the board members that are here will recall that in 2018, we had several public hearings where employees of these food service firms that were working on our campuses were coming and relaying stories of mistreatment, of injuries on the job, of not being paid a living wage. And I really want to commend the board and the leadership that's here today, Chairman Thompson, the chair of this committee, Ferrer, Vice Chair Schwartz, and Trustee Bergen, who was very involved in this, and all of the trustees got very, very involved in this when they heard those stories from the food service workers and directed us to do something about it. And so what we did was we did a university-wide procurement. We put a university-wide RFP out on the street so that for the first time we would have a coordinated enterprise-wide food service at our campuses. And so we actually put out two RFPs. One RFP was for multiple vendors, in which colleges can choose one of multiple vendors to use, and one was for a single vendor. We put together a selection committee that was that had representatives of 10 campuses. and also representatives from the central office. We had a faculty member from the School of Public Health. We had 2 student representatives, one from Hunter College, one from Brew College, and just say that 2 student representatives couldn't have been any more outstanding in their contribution to the committee. And after a review of all of the vendor bids for both RFPs, it became clear to the evaluation committee that the single vendor model was the one that would work best for us. And so I want to also commend Chancellor Matos Rodriguez and our Chief Operating Officer Hector Batista, because when they came in last year, we were pretty far down the road in terms of this procurement, and they both wanted us to pause because they knew this was a big deal for our campuses and for our students, and they wanted to understand the implications for our students and for our campuses. And so we went through the process of making sure that the Chancellor and our Chief Operating Officer were comfortable with us moving forward. Once they were, we began to move forward, and we have selected Cullen/Art as the vendor for consideration tonight. Cullen/Art, a big national chain, has many higher ed clients as part of their portfolio. And just a brief overview of what they are going to provide as part of this agreement, and it's in the explanation on the resolution, but just to go through it in a little bit more detail. One of the best things that they're going to do is they're going to make an $18 million investment in this university. $16 million will be in facilities improvements. Some of our cafeterias, President Carol Mason is the presidential representative on this committee. John Jay College, for all of you who have been to the college, know that they have a really nice facilities in terms of their cafeteria and their new building. Some of our other colleges, though, when you go to their cafeterias, they were built in the 1960s and 1970s, and there's been no improvements to those facilities since. And so the Cullen/Art is going to invest $16 million in facilities improvements, which is going to make the dining experience for our students much better, and a place that they can not only eat but congregate and do work in between their classes. They're also going to invest $2 million to help address food insecurity, which again was something that the Chancellor and Chief Operating Officer Batista really pushed for and wanted to make sure was part of this deal. And so over the life of the contract, they will provide $2 million to help combat food insecurity on our campuses, which again we're very pleased about. As Chairman Ferrer said earlier, this is a revenue contract, so there's no outlay of CUNY funds here. It won't cost CUNY any money to enter into this contract. There is a profit-sharing agreement. Any profits in excess of 3% of gross sales will go back to the vendor. Anything above, I should say up to 3% will go back to the vendor. Anything above 3% will be shared 80% back to the campus, 20% back to the vendor. So again, we're very hopeful that this will result in additional revenues for our campuses as well. In terms of pricing, again, as I mentioned earlier, pricing at the college's cafeterias was all over the place. Cullen/Art's going to implement 2 tiers of pricing. That's going to be based on where the campuses are now, and it's going to look at street value, which basically looking at what these, whether it's a hamburger or a pizza or a quesadilla, what that costs out on the street to buy. And so the pricing, again, will be standardized. There'll be 2 tiers, and the vendor will work with the college to choose what tier that they will have on their campus. One of the other great things about the vendor, and they do with their current clients, is they have an app that students can download, and Cullen/Art runs daily specials. So every single day that the student comes on campus, they can go to their app and see what the daily special is for the day. That'll be a discounted price, and again, something that'll help our students in terms of being able to afford buying lunch or breakfast in the cafeteria. In terms of the labor issue that I mentioned earlier and some of the things that we heard at the public hearing 2 years ago, Culinar, as part of the requirement of this, of our RFP and of the contract, they have agreed that they will enter into labor harmony agreements so that if employees at any of our campuses choose to unionize, that Culinar will enter into the labor harmony agreement and allow them to do that, as well as pay New York City current minimum wage rates and prevailing wages. Because we do have 18 campuses that will be part of this contract, we're going to do this in 2 phases. The first phase will be those campuses that either currently have expired contracts, and those are 9 campuses, and they're listed in the explanation section of the resolution. Phase 2 will be those campuses that their current food service vendor contracts will extend past a year or 2. And so we will do this in phases. So, and we're very excited to bring this for you. I appreciate the time that you allowed me to explain this. And before I open it up for Q&A, I also want to recognize our Director of Procurement, Karen Christian, our Senior Vice Chancellor and General Counsel, Derek Davis, and Jane Davis from the General Counsel's office. And Karen and Jane especially have done a tremendous amount of work to get us to this point, and appreciative of their efforts. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, I appreciate the time. Open up for questions. Or, I'm sorry.
Matt, before we turn it over, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I just want to make sort of three points here. Number one is I think that I want to echo what Matt has stated. We thank the board for their leadership in raising this as an issue, as they heard that there was all these issues around employment issues at the campuses and so forth. I also want to sort of highlight the fact that for the chancellor, it was extremely important that, number one, that this contract had really focused on pricing. So we did spend a lot of time focusing on pricing. It was really important. It's one of the things that he's been championing, the whole issue of food insecurity. So having that as part of the contract. And then lastly, it was extremely important that we do something to improve the conditions of some of our cafeteria. And then I also want to thank both Matt Sapienza, his team. I also want to thank Jane Davis and Derek Davis and the team, because this has been a real tough contract to bring forth to the board, because there's a lot of moving parts. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that the chancellor has really stated that it's important that this contract is looked at individual contract for each of the colleges. So they feel that they have someone that they could call and deal with when it comes to making sure that our colleges, when it comes to different types of food and things along those lines, those issues are addressed at the local level. So I think because of his leadership, we've been able to implement sort of all those changes as part of this contract. So I'm really very proud that this contract is moving forward, because I think it's going to really begin to really help the system address some of the concerns that have been brought to the board before. So thank you for that, Chairman.
Okay, I'll move approval of C1. Do I have a second?
Berger, second.
Is there any discussion amongst the trustees, members of the committee?
Yeah, can I say something? This is Ken Sunshine. This was an issue. There were so many parts of this. I want to commend everybody that brought this to where it is for, I assume, approval in a few minutes. It was a particularly bad period when we dealt with this at the board level and one of the things that frankly irked me was the way workers were treated at many of the colleges, and nightmarish tales. It is not what CUNY does. It's not in CUNY's ethos to treat its workers like that, plus all the complaints about the service. So I couldn't be happier that we finally got it together, and I commend everybody that was part of it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this?
Yes, this is Kason. I have a question.
Yes.
It's about the food insecurity portion of it. Is that like a meal plan program, or how would that how would that go to the students? Is it like going to their ID cards for them to use for purchases?
Mr. Batista?
Yeah, I can try that one if that's okay, EDC
sorry.
Batista. Yeah, no. And Kason, thanks for your question. How that money is going to be utilized is going to be something that we are going to work out with each individual campus. I think there are some campuses that right now do allow dollars to be loaded on the students' cards. And so, for those who already have that, who have that capability, that'll be easy. For some that don't, we might have another solution until we can get that technology to each of our campuses. But in what you described, the ultimate goal is that, yes, what we'd like to do is to be able to use those funds to load onto a student swipe card so that when they get to the cafeteria, they have money on their swipe card that they can use to buy food or beverages in the cafeteria. Initially, again, because some of our campuses don't have that technology, we might use it in a different way. But that's the ultimate goal, is to have a swipe card process in which that money can be used to load right onto students' cards.
Matt, this is Jane Davis. Could I add a clarifying comment to that?
Of course. Thank you, Jane.
The proposal right now from Culinart is that they will provide declining balance cards, prepaid declining balance cards that will be usable at the campus food location, and the college will hand out and determine who receives those cards. So that's the structure they have suggested.
Is there anyone else?
Professor Verzani has a quick question about the $16 million in investment. What guarantees are there in place that the Phase 2 colleges will be able to share in that money if the Phase 1 colleges prove more expensive to build out?
Matt?
I'll take that. I mean, I think that what we're going to do, this is Hector Batista, is our facility folks are going to work with Culinart to assure that these dollars get distributed across all 18. The recommendations, there were certain things that they recommended that we don't believe are necessary. So we think that there'll be some savings there and the ability for us to be able to spread this out across all campuses.
Thank you.
Is that responsive to your question, Professor?
I'd be nervous were I a Phase 2 college, but I'm not, so yes, it does.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, this is Barry Schwartz. Congratulations to all on this contract. This has been a while in coming, and thank you all for your good work. I have one question that's by way of information, prompted by, frankly, the period of time over which we have been talking about this, and you all have been negotiating this. And it relates to the facility improvements. And as Matt said, among the things that we want to see is the opportunity for students to meet and congregate in these dining rooms. So most of these discussions with the contract occurred pre-pandemic. The contract will be implemented in the midst of the pandemic, and what follows from the pandemic in terms of design of places like cafeterias remains to be seen. And what follows from the time when there is treatment and ultimately vaccine by way of changes to designs to focus on pandemic also remains to be seen. My question is, what contemplation did we give to that? And what room do we have under this contract to make changes and to share in the cost of those changes to be responsive to the needs of our students for safety in this pandemic period?
I'll start it. This is Hector. Culinart, obviously, as a company, raised this with us doing this towards the end of this negotiation. As you know, as Matt stated, there are nationwide food services contract, and they actually have a plan that they gave us for us to review on how they will address some of the concerns around how do you handle during this period, a full contract like this, and how you handle cafeterias. We are obviously, as we're weighing in all our plans going forward, we're going to be taking a lot of the recommendations into consideration to ensure that, the proper safe distance and social distancing is being adhered to. And they have different phases of that plan, which we're reviewing going forward, because we realize that these are different times, and something that, to their credit, they raised with us very early. I don't know if Jane or Matt have anything else they want to add to that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Hector. The only thing I would add to that is, the pandemic in some ways is giving us an opportunity that we likely would not have had elsewise, because if the contract is approved tonight and is approved by the in place shortly thereafter, the fact that we will be in a distance learning modality for summer session will help in terms of accelerating the facilities upgrades projects. Had students been, physically on campus during summer, we might have had to have slowed down some of that, because students may have needed to go into the cafeteria, but we've spoken to the vendor about the fact that this presents us with an opportunity to hopefully accelerate some of the facilities upgrades over the summer, while there's a very light amount of people that are on the campus physically.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? We have a motion and a second on policy item CI. If there is no further discussion, we'll now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Policy item CI is approved. Thank you. Policy item CII is a resolution requesting the authorization of contract with Jaguar LLC to provide an e-procurement solution to the university. The university is committed to reducing operating processing expenses by systematically decreasing the time from requisition to payment, improving the end user experience for ordering and receiving goods, ensuring contract compliance, and collecting detailed spend data across the university, and is seeking to purchase an e-procurement solution to achieve those objectives. The contract will be for a period of 5 years with an additional 1 5-year renewal option. And that's to be exercised at the sole discretion of the university for a total value of $11.9 million. I'd like to call on Executive Vice Chancellor and COO Hector Batista and Senior Vice Chancellor Matt Sapienza to provide further background.
You can start, Matt.
Thank you, Hector.
Any one of you will do.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Hector. So again, this is another university-wide initiative that we're very pleased to bring for consideration tonight. And the Fiscal Committee heard about this project at our last meeting when the Institute for State and Local Governance did their presentation on the Efficiencies Reinvestment Initiative. This is a very large project that's underpinning our Efficiencies Reinvestment program. And a couple of reasons why we're very excited about this. One is we are going to generate savings from this, and we're going to generate savings in a few ways. One is the procurement process and the payment process will now both be more automated than it is now. And we estimate that this is going to save us both in terms of campus personnel who are doing these services now, as well as folks in the central office. So we're going to have some personnel savings just from automating the purchasing and accounts payable functions in the university. Secondly, what this is going to enable us to do is to have our university-wide contracts, the ones that we have strategically sourced and the ones that we're planning to strategically source, to put those right into the system. And so we can guarantee that colleges and central offices will use those contracts that are going to give us best pricing. So not only are we going to have personnel savings from having to have less staff perform the functions of purchasing and accounts payable, but we're going to be able to load the contracts that have been strategically sourced and that we've gotten best prices right into the system and ensure best pricing. So we think that, and we're very confident in the work that we've done, and I know that ISLG has analyzed this issue as well, that this contract is going to pay for itself, and that between the savings we're going to get on purchasing and the savings we're going to get on personnel efficiencies, that we are more than going to offset the costs of this $6 million contract over 5 years, and that these savings will be part of our efficiencies reinvestment initiative that we're going to redirect towards the campuses to help them manage their budgets as well. So that's one major piece of it. But the second piece of it as well is this is going to be a much better user experience for our buyers at the campuses. So whether it's faculty members, people in departments, other purchasing agents at the campuses, this is going to be a buying experience that they're going to be used to because it's going to be very similar to what they do when they do personal shopping. They're not going to have to go directly into the CUNY First system and know what account code to use. This is going to be point and click. So if they want to buy something, and I'll use our facilities maintenance contracts, I know you're all very familiar with it, that we brought to the Board Fiscal Committee several months ago. Granger is our main facilities contract partner. They want to buy something for facilities. They go into the Granger site, point and click, put it in your shopping cart, check out, and that will then kick off the requisition process that will feed into our CUNY First system. But the user experience is going to be so much easier and so much more efficient for the folks in our campuses in the central office, and that we're pretty pleased about as well. So again, a lot of great work on a lot of people's behalf to bring this to the committee tonight. And again, I want to thank Karen Christian, our procurement director, for her and her team's really good work on this. And I want to also acknowledge our COO, Hector Batista, who made this a priority from almost day one when he joined us last summer. So happy to take any questions from the committee.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions?
I just wanted to add 2 points. Sorry, Chairman. I just wanted to add 2 points to this. I mean, I think that Matt has covered it very nicely. I think the only 2 points I want to make is obviously this helps us with, creating.
Somebody needs to mute.
This helps with the economy, creating an economy of scale and being able to to be able to document that and be able to go to vendors and say, so the purchasing power of CUNY. And then lastly, this is part of phase one of us sort of reimagining procurement and try to make procurement sort of work better for CUNY. So this is phase one of that procurement. The board's going to hear more about that as we go along during this process. I just wanted to, I'm very excited about this because I think this is moving them in the direction that we need to be moving on. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Kason. I have a question.
Please.
So for student organizations like say clubs or student governments, how would this affect their purchasing? Would their like faculty advisor have to make the purchase for them, or somebody else, or the student make the purchase?
Yeah, thanks, Kason. All non-tax levy entities are coming on to CUNY first. So it is our intention that auxiliaries, associations, that all of them are going to be using the same system. So we're going to bring the colleges up first, but yes, it is our intent that everyone in the university community is going to be on this system.
Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? I have a few questions then. The $11.9 million over 5 years, that's for the first part of it. That does not include the renewal, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, it does. It does include the renewal. I'm sorry. This is Karen speaking here.
Yeah.
The 11.6 includes the renewal.
Well, it says 11.9. Okay, good. Whatever it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. What is the total spend currently of procurement across the university that would be migrated to the system?
Well, the total amount of spend that will be in the system is probably somewhere in the range of between $65 and $70 million. Because things like some of our other larger OTPS components, like energy payments, Con Ed, lease payments to our landlords for the facilities that we rent, that won't be part of the system. These will be things that we are purchasing from the campuses. So these are going to be things like office supplies, maintenance supplies, computer software and hardware, periodicals and subscriptions. So I would say that overall, it's probably in the range between $65 and $70 million a year that will be part of the overall spend that will flow through the system. So
our current spend you project, you identify as about $70 million, let's say. By going to this e-procurement system over the 5 years?
Yeah, we think once we, Chair, we think once we're fully scaled up in year 5, that we, on the purchasing side of this, that we are going to save about $6.5 million. So we think we can save pretty much close to 10% of our total OTPS spend, that $65 to $70 million. We think we can generate 10%. We're going with the lower number just because we want to be conservative. And we're going with that $65 million base because we want to be conservative and know that, we might have some budget challenges ahead and the OTPS spending might just naturally come down. So we think we could save about 10%. And I think that in the research that we've done, and I know that ISLG has done as well, on other large organizations that have implemented such a system, that is a reachable target. So we think we could save about $6.5 million just on the purchasing part of it. And on the personnel part, we think we can save over $3 million because we think that there are again, at least one procurement position and at least one accounts payable position at every college and at the central office. So we think there's 42 positions that we can save through attrition or redirecting folks to other vacancies at the college, or at central office. So between the 6.5 on the purchasing and the $3 million or a little over $3 million on personnel, we think we're going to generate, once we're fully scaled up, about $9.6 million a year.
So you're projecting a year in savings of combined PS and OTPS expenses, right? On an annual basis?
Yes, once we're fully scaled up in year 5, that's correct.
To that point.
Correct.
And do you think those savings will be offset by the cost of our paying for the system?
Yes, and the contract costs, in year 1, because we'll be in implementation phase, will be probably around $750,000 to $800,000. But once we're fully scaled up and operational, the contract costs will be about $1.3 million a year. So we're going to save $9.5 million. We have contract costs of $1.3 million, so the net will be, again, once we're fully scaled up, well, we think about $8.3 million a year. And again, we know that that's, sorely needed savings to redirect to our campuses and towards academic and student support services. So again, it'll take us some time to get there, but we think we're going to generate savings in year 1, and that will build up to what we're projecting to be $8.3 million once we're fully scaled in year 5.
And the PS savings that you anticipate, those are positions that will just disappear, or will they be reallocated somewhere else, or what will happen?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, it'll be in 2 ways. One, as you said, they'll be reallocated to other work on the campus or in the central office, to other duties, or as we have attrition in those areas of purchasing and accounts payable, we won't have the need to backfill because a lot of the functions that are currently done in those areas are going to be automated. So I think through attrition and through reallocation.
Okay, so I presume that somewhere in the course of this contract and operation, you'll be coming back at the committee with a progress report on this, no?
Yes, absolutely, and we look forward to doing so. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone else on this?
I'd like a question, if I could. In your answer to the last set of excellent questions, you mentioned a personnel reduction in terms of the particular roles people play on campus. If campuses need to go outside of the system for a procurement, they won't have the local expertise anymore on campus. How will campuses that need to procure something obscure or something that's a one-off for the campus and not part of this procurement process actually get that handled?
Well, no, and thanks for the question, Professor Rosani. The procurement that happens in terms of the front end, which I believe is what you're describing in terms of putting together an RFP, putting together specs, that function we don't see as being taken away or automated from this system, because we agree with you. I mean, that requires a special expertise and a special, good customer service to work with the end user to find out what they need and to write up a good scope and to write up a strong RFP that is going to get the end user what they need. What we really see here is really more of the functional work that goes on. People that enter requisitions or purchase orders, people in accounts payable that once the good or service is delivered or provided, that they cut the work with the state controller or city controller's office in terms of getting the check cut. It's really more automating those type of functions and not those front-end functions that you described. Those will still be required. We'll still have a requirement to have a procurement director on the campus that can work with the faculty and work with the operational folks to get that type of work done.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'll move approval of item CII. Do I have a second?
Berger, second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're now ready to vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Any abstentions? Policy item CII is approved. And now we move on to section 3, the information items. There are 2 information items on the agenda. Item 3A is the fiscal year 2020 third quarter financial report, and I'd like to ask Matt Sapienza to provide further insight into this item. Matt, you got to hit the mute button.
Fine, I apologize. That's 2 strikes on the mute button at this meeting, so hopefully I won't get a third. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the third quarter financial report we issued last Friday to our college presidents and university community. This is a report that over the last several weeks that we were working on this, and again, I want to recognize our university budget director, Kathy Abbott, and her team for their good work on this in collaboration with the campuses. But we were really curious to see what the projections are going to look like based on the impact of the pandemic on our campuses. And we were very pleased to see that while the pandemic is having an impact, that at least in the current year, that it wasn't having a major disruption to the financial status of our campuses. And so our campuses have incurred additional expenses for cleaning and hand sanitizer and PPEs. There's no question they have, and we have at the university level as well. But that's been offset some by savings on other items. Some of the OTTS purchases that we have to do in the normal course of business, we have been able to save on because students and faculty are not on the campus through the distance learning. We've saved on travel costs. We've saved on energy costs. So we have had some savings that have been offset the additional expenses that we've had. So overall, in terms of our purchasing budget, we're actually projecting a little less than we were when we came to you with the mid-year report several months ago. So we were pleased about that. Of concern that, again, is caused from the pandemic is revenues. Because, again, some students were not able to continue, not a lot, but some were not able to continue with their academic learning for spring. And others have had problems in terms of making timely payments because they or their family have lost their job. And so, there are some concerns about the revenue and the collections. And so we brought our revenue projection down for mid-year, but with the expenditures coming down and the revenues coming down, it was pretty much a wash. And so we are but we are looking at a fairly stable condition in terms of the current year, in terms of getting us to the end of the fiscal year, getting us to June 30th. Overall, personal service, the payroll expenses are up about 5% over last year, but that is entirely due to the collective bargaining increases for our faculty union and our administrative unions, DC 37 and the like. Our actual staffing overall for the university is down 263 positions versus last year. So our staffing is down 1%. Our colleges and central office are being very conservative in terms of their staffing, and we're down 1% in staffing. But again, payroll expenses are up due to collective bargaining. And again, as I mentioned earlier, OTTS expenditures, purchasing expenditures, are down about 1% versus last year as well. So the report that we sent out to you all a few days ago over the weekend, page 4 is the summary page of the total budget for each college and where we are expecting them to end the year. As you can see on this page, we are projecting that all of the colleges, with the exception of 2, will end the year in a positive condition. And those colleges are Medgar Evers, who are projecting to have a $1.7 million deficit, and Kingsborough Community College, who are projecting for a $2.7 million deficit. And for both of these colleges, they have been taking the right steps in terms of managing their budgets in this challenging environment. Medgar Evers staffing is down 5% since last year. Kingsborough has also been very good about their staffing levels, and compared to a year ago, they're down as well. The main issue for both of these colleges has been enrollment. Medgar Evers enrollment was down 12% in fall and 16% in spring. And so that's driving, a very significant revenue loss for them, which is creating this deficit condition. And Kingsborough Community College, it's a very similar item that Kingsborough's spring enrollment was down 5%. And we, in the mid-year, we were projecting that Kingsborough was just going to get by and just have a positive condition. But because of the enrollment loss, that really put them in a negative condition. The other thing to keep in mind about our community colleges is that the city of New York, because of the fiscal constraints that they're under, did impose a cut on us for the remainder of the fiscal year of $20 million, $10 million of which we asked the campuses to reduce. And Kingsborough just did not have, the level of reserves and other accruals in their budget to take on a cut like that. So we are projecting those 2 colleges to end in deficit. All the other colleges, we're projecting to end in a positive condition. So overall, we're projecting year-end reserves of about $52 million, about $2 million less than we were projecting at mid-year. So again, we're very, very close to mid-year, which we're really pleased to see that the effects of COVID has not had a negative effect in the current year. Obviously, we are concerned with the effects are going to be next year. We're very concerned about that, both for enrollment and public funding and additional costs that we may have to incur. But for this year, it does look like we are going to end the year overall in a positive condition. And the colleges will that are ending in a positive condition will have collectively about $52 million to roll over next year to help them with next year's challenge. So I'll stop there. I know it's a large report with a lot of data, and again, I thank Kathy and her team for the good work. But I'll pause there for any questions or concerns that the committee might have.
Any questions or comment on this? Okay. Item 3B is the Fiscal Matters Information Report.
Fiscal Matters, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was strike 3. I did mute again. The Fiscal Matters Information Report, this is a report that we put together and we've issued a few times earlier this fiscal year, and I want to recognize our Board Secretary Gail Horowitz and her team for the good work they did in revamping the Chancellor's University Report. And the items that are contained on this report were the fiscal items that historically had been in the Chancellor's University Report. And so as part of the good work that the Board Secretary's office did, we developed this summary report that we would bring to the Fiscal Committee as an information item several times during the fiscal year. And I want to thank our Deputy CFO, Christina Chiap, for her good work in collecting all this and working with the colleges to put this report together. And there's 3 major components to this report. One is grant activity that the colleges have generated throughout the fiscal year and since the last report. It also includes tuition waivers that colleges have granted for various programs and groups of students throughout the year. And then the third are material fees. And material fees are those things that the colleges charge when students are taking courses for which they have the need for the use of a material for the course or something that they will be keeping after the course is over. And so colleges do charge material fees for those, and so we're reporting changes to the material fees as part of this report as well.
Are there any questions or comments on this report? Thank you, Matt. There is nothing further on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn,
Yes, sir.
am I correct in believing that we will have to have an additional meeting once we get state and city numbers on what their contributions are, so we can get ultimately actually recommend adopting a budget for the coming fiscal year? I know everything is totally up in the air, but we don't know what the state's giving us. We don't know what the city is giving us. We don't know what our additional COVID expenditures have been. We don't know about the allocation of the federal funds that have come to us. I mean, there are a lot of unknowns at this point. Am I correct in believing that we will have to have a meeting to consider all those once the information solidifies?
In order for us to fulfill our legal responsibility, truth. Does anyone have any insight as to the timing of this? Matt?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair Frey. Yeah, as Trustee Berger said, there's a lot of uncertainty right now with both the state and city's condition. I think we joined the chorus of folks in state and city government that were very, very hopeful of federal support, additional federal support to help out the state and local governments, and that's going to have a direct impact on our budget. So, yeah, I think, as Sheffield said, it is our intention to come back to the board and with a plan for our budget for next year. That's certainly our intention, but, don't have anything concrete at this point to report because of the uncertainty. But, again, we'll continue to discuss with our funding partners at the same city and make sure that this committee, members of this committee and the board are kept apprised of where we are. But, our fiscal year is going to start in 3 weeks. So we're getting very close to that point where we are going to need to come with a budget plan to the board.
Sure seems that way. Is that responsive to your question, Trustee Berger?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to bring one point up.
Mr. Mangan?
Yeah, so I saw that there was a statement on what's been going on with the racial injustices, and I just wanted to give my very, very brief recommendation on if I were in a position to take action. I would. A lot of students are sharing the sentiment, and more generally in society, that there should be less of a police presence in general, and I would suggest for further consideration to, instead of cutting any teaching faculty or anything like this, to consider looking into public safety. And I understand the line between operations and safety and continuing to continue the duties of the institution. But speaking further into the racial injustices, I think it is time to analyze the institutions and the systems that are serving society in general, and kind of see where things can change. And from my perspective and from other students, that's one area that can be considered. So I just wanted to bring that to the board for everybody to have on their radar, and for the executive body to consider when they're making it.
Certainly be part of the budget adoption process, so you'll be right there in the middle of it. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment on this?
The only thing I'll say, Mr. Chairman, really just for the record, and I appreciate our student rep, raising this issue, and Kesa and I also had an offline conversation about this, which I appreciate. I just want to state for the record, I think most folks on this call are aware of this, but since it is a public meeting, that public safety at the university, they are an independent organization of the NYPD. I know in the public schools, the school safety officers that work in our city's public schools are employees of the NYPD. CUNY Public Safety, they're employees of CUNY. It's an organization independent of the police department. While our public safety do collaborate very closely with the police department when there is an incident that needs the PD, it is an independent organization, and it's not. I just want to say that for the record, it is not part of the NYPD.
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, I also want to state that the NYPD it's not allowed on our premises unless invited by our campus because something is going on there. So, as Matt stated, the public safety are employees of CUNY. They are obviously unionized employees of CUNY who just provide safe and comfortable environment for our system.
Is there anyone else? Any further commentary? Well, with no further items on the agenda, before I move to adjourn, I'm going to remind the Chancellery and whoever resembles that comment that the committee should expect in the near future some guidelines as to procurement policy with respect to one company bids and proprietary equipment and software. And I'd be eager to see your recommendations to this committee.
We will. You have our word that we will provide that to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I move we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Berger, second.
Thank you. All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.